What is happening, everybody? Welcome to MLB Live Before Lock. As you're watching, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Also consider watching over on Playback. We're going to be watching on both YouTube and Playback, simulcasting to the two. And then, of course, after this, we got NBA Live Before Lock. And then I'm going to be heading on over to Playback, where I'll be hanging out with whoever wants to hang out with me. I don't know if we've got NBA Live Before Lock tonight is going to be Eric and Ryan. Josh is away for his 10th wedding anniversary, so maybe Eric will stick around. Maybe Ryan will stick around. Maybe both of them will stick around. It'll be good. Maybe even Jordan will want to hang out with Eric and Ryan and I. It's our friend group. That's our group chat. All right. Yeah. So check out Playback later on in the day where we sweat some of the games as well. We've got a big baseball slate tonight, Matt, 12 games, which, you know, it's nice that we don't have a broken up slate. A lot of these ones as of late have been broken up. There's no weather concerns or anything like that. Every game looks like it should play and no real issues on that front. So guys, let's start breaking it down. We're sponsored here by DraftKings Pick 6. Before we start getting into it, Matt, any general thoughts with this being a 12-game slate? We haven't seen one this size in a little bit.
Just kind of playing off what you just said. Like, yeah, I love the days with multi-slates, but it's just so much like research and bankroll and everything, like when there's so many slates, multiple slates every day. So it's nice, these Friday night slates where we just get one main one. You know, most of the teams start after the 6:50 games. There's only, I think, 3 games that start early. So again, we get 12 games. Should be a fun slate. Coors is in play, but not great hitting weather there. So really, really wide open slate. Excited to talk it out with you.
Yeah, and ownership also very spread out. We only have one pitcher on the entire slate that is north of 20% ownership, and that is a 24% owned Bryan Woo pitching against the Oakland A's. And we'll have to talk about what we think his pitch count might be with him coming off the injured list. As far as pay-up options go, Matt, let's start talking about the 3 pitchers that are priced above 10K, that being Joe Ryan, Ranger Suarez, who's been incredible this year, as well as Tyler Glasnow, who's also been really good. So of these 3 pitchers, all of them picking up some amount of ownership, 17% ownership going to Glasnow on the road against the Padres. We've got 12% ownership going to Ranger Suarez on the road against the Miami Marlins. And then finally, Joe Ryan pitching on the road against the Toronto Blue Jays. He is projected for 9% ownership. Of these 3 pay-up options, Matt, are any of them in particular rising above the rest of them to you as a priority?
Full disclosure, I'm not spending up, so I'm not using any of these guys, at least as of now. If I were, I think the easy answer is Glasnow. Yeah, it's not a great matchup. San Diego has a ton of upside, but they're also full of right-handed bats. The addition of our eyes does not help Glasnow here, but I just think he's pretty clearly the top DFS pitcher on this slate. He might be the best DFS pitcher in baseball right now, considering his win equity every time out. Again, I don't love the matchup here, but Suarez you're paying full price for, and Ryan hasn't been nearly as good as those two, and he's in arguably the toughest spot of them all in Toronto. So it's Glasnow for me, but at close to 11K, I don't think he's a must. How do you see it?
So certainly nobody a must. I don't have a single pitcher north of 30% of my lineups here. So it pretty spread out a pitcher. I understand why the ownership is as spread as it is. For me, though, I am getting the most to Tyler Glasnow. And he's my most rostered pitcher on the entire slate in 28% of my lineups. So he's a guy who I'm getting to for sure. And he's just been very, very good this season. 2.7 ERA, 2.43 expected ERA. His velocity has looked really solid. He's healthy. We haven't seen Tyler Glasnow healthy in forever. The strikeout stuff, always great. 32.3% strikeout rate. The walks, career best, 6.7% walk rate. So there's a lot of positive signs here for Tyler Glasnow. He's my favorite pay-up option. He's the pitcher I'm getting to the most overall on the slate, but once again, a little bit spread out as far as pitching goes, just because there is no one like vastly superior option. And then also when you got a guy here in Tyler Glasnow, who, even though the matchup might not necessarily be ideal on the road against the Padres, he's got enough strikeout stuff where it's going to offset any runs that he might allow here. So if I'm paying up for one pitcher, it's Tyler Glasnow. I also like him quite a bit overall if we're looking at just the broader picture of my favorite pitchers to roster on the slate. The one thing to add here, though, is there's no pitcher I would consider like a must play, especially if people are playing one lineup because of how many decent looking options there are.
Yeah, I completely agree. Certainly, if you can get up to him, Glasnow's the top guy. He'll pretty much be that on every slate he's on. Tonight is no exception. I think we just see this eye to eye. You don't have to get up there because there's so many good options at pretty much every price point.
Yeah, so let's move on to the next pitchers in the 9K range. And one other thing also I'll note here, like I get some lineups with Rangers Suarez. I have some lineups with Joe Ryan as well, but it's a single digit amount right now. So nothing really crazy in terms of my ownership to those pitchers. As great as Suarez has been this year, I don't really want to pay north of 10K for him.
100% same. Like he is in the best spot of them all. I wouldn't think anyone's crazy for playing Suarez. He's been phenomenal so far this season. He's been arguably the best pitcher in baseball. I'm just not there. I'm not going to pay full price for him. I'd rather go to Glass now or spend out.
So let's talk about all the pitchers in the 9K and the 8K range together. So we're looking at everybody from Yusei Kikuchi through Bryan Woo, because there's a bunch of pitchers that are picking up ownership in this range, Matt. We've got Tanner Houck at $9,100 at home against the Nationals, 18% owned. We've got Logan Webb at home against the Cincinnati Reds at $8,500. He is also 18% owned. Garrett Crochet, $8,100 against the Guardians. He is 18% owned. That's kind of like the magic number of ownership in this price range, apparently. And then you got the chalk here, Bryan Woo at 8,000 against the Oakland A's, projected for 24% ownership. So we've got Houck, Webb, Crochet, Woo, all of them priced fairly close together and also having comparable ownership. Of these pitchers that are picking up ownership, who is your favorite?
I didn't think I was going to get here early in the day when I did the show with Lofty, but I'm on Logan Webb here. I just think he's the best pitcher of the bunch. What he lacks in strikeout upside, he can make in just overall efficiency in terms of his pitches. So I don't love him here. I think the spot certainly has a low floor because Cincy has upside, but it also has a decently high ceiling because Cincy has not been as good recently, and they can definitely strike out against right-handed pitching. I just think he's too cheap. Not concerned at all about the ownership like I would be with a Bryan Woo. So I'm going to say Logan Webb here. How about you?
Logan Webb is the one I get the most exposure to. Now, with that said, that means I have 18% of Logan Webb, about even with the field on him. And then I'm coming in underweight on these other pitchers who are in this range. I've been really high on Garrett Crochet in a bunch of his recent starts for a couple of reasons. First off, I think he's exceptional. Really good strikeout stuff. The numbers bear that out. But then also, we had all these slates where they would even be small slates, Matt. It would be like a 6-game slate, and Crochet would be 5-6% owned because people were only looking at the ERA. They weren't looking at the underlying numbers. They weren't looking at the BABIP. They weren't looking at the strand rate. And they were just saying, like, hey, Garrett Crochet, this guy's bad. He's giving up runs, and nobody was rostering him. Now that he's actually strung together a couple of starts that equal what his underlying numbers are, people are back on Crochet. I mean, I'm going to get some exposure to him at $8,100. He's just not any kind of real priority for me. Logan Webb is the one that I get the most of here against the Reds. There is a little bit of cause for concern just because his strikeout rate is so far down this year. And then his underlying numbers also don't look quite as good. So we've got Logan Webb with a 3.5 ERA, but a 4.73 expected ERA. And his strikeout rate is 18.3% this year. That is a career low. So there are some concerns for me in that department, which is why I have 18% of Logan Webb and not like 30% or anything like that. But considering he's been such an elite starting pitcher for 4 years now, I do expect there's going to be some sort of bounce back. We're only looking at 8 starts when the guy's been one of the best pitchers in the National League since 2021.
Yeah, pretty sure he was a little bit slow to in spring training. He was out a little while. So, maybe just now, or maybe it'll take a little bit longer for him to round into form. But I'm with you. Like, he just has too long of a track record to take too much into what he's done so far this year. And I'm also with you on Crochet. You've seen him be like way under-owned recently. Tonight, that's not the case at all. So it's probably the toughest matchup he's been in a couple starts, and he's the most expensive, and he's finally getting love. So I'd rather get off him.
Yeah, I have him in 13% of lineups right now. It's a little bit underweight to him. Nothing like too crazy. There's a lot of guys that I think we should have interest in. But let's talk about Bryan Woo and try to dive into what we think his pitch count could look, because Bryan Woo, very good pitcher. Oakland A's offense strike out a lot. We know there's upside in pitchers going up against them. Bryan Woo is also going to be at home. I mean, there is no way that there's a Seattle-Oakland matchup that isn't in a pitcher-friendly park, but Bryan Woo also going to be pitching at home against the Oakland A's here. He's the most popular pitcher on the slate at 24% projected ownership. What are we doing with Bryan Woo here, Matt? Because he's super popular. We haven't seen him pitch because he's been on the injured list. What are we expecting from how deep he could go into the game?
I don't know. He went 66 pitches in his last rehab outing. He was phenomenal in in those starts. I think he went 17, or no, he went 11 innings, didn't allow an earned run, and had 17 strikeouts. He's a good young pitcher, but he's not, doesn't project to be some like elite fantasy ace. And Oakland has been really good against right-handed pitching lately. Now, that probably doesn't continue for the full season. I mean, it won't continue. But I do think this matchup is a little bit tougher than it might have been a few weeks ago. And we don't know whose pitch count. I can't believe he's getting this much ownership with how many good options there are. I'm not on Woo here at all.
I'm doing a Twitter search right now to see if there's been any updates on his pitch count. And because I was looking earlier, there was nothing. And I'm still not seeing anything as far as a pitch count. But like you had said, he's been throwing limited pitches in his time in the minor leagues. This is somebody who is a top end pitching prospect for the Seattle Mariners not all that long ago. Last year, makes 18 starts, ends up getting hurt. This year, we've seen him make 3 starts in the minor league. So it hasn't been that many rehab appearances. He's only thrown 11 innings. My best guess is that he's going to be capped at 5 innings and is probably likely to throw even less than that.
I'm with you. Like, we'll see how the game goes. If he's cruising, then maybe you get more out of him. But I'm just not willing to get there, honestly, with so many other good options. So, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I still think the matchup's good. I don't think Oakland is going to be good long term, but I don't think it's a slam dunk, especially for a guy that we have serious pitch count concerns. So we're on the same page.
3 innings, 3 1/3 innings, 5 innings in his 3 rehab starts. But a big part of that is he was so efficient in his last start. I mean, he pitched 5 innings, no walks. By the way, he had 0 walks across his 3 rehab starts. 3 rehab starts, 11 1/3 innings, 17 strikeouts, no walks. He was exceptional in the minor leagues, which you had pointed to. But you get to this point too, where it's like, all right, his last start, 5 innings, 6 strikeouts. So you might just look at it and go like, all right, he's going 5 or 6 innings, but not so fast. Like you said, he still threw under 70 pitches in that outing. So I'm very cautious with how deep we could expect Bryan Woo to work into the game. If this was a scenario where Woo was 8K against Oakland, so everything else being the same, but he was like 5% owned, then I'd say, let's take chances on Bryan Woo if he's going to maybe see that pitch count get extended a little bit. But I want to do the opposite when he is going to be the chalkiest pitcher on the slate going against the Oakland A's. So I'll be underweight to the field on Bryan Woo. Let's see, I got him. Yeah, I hardly have any lineups with him right now. And I think it's the same too. I'm looking at the Sims Jordan had ran that are on the screen right now over in playback. And Bryan Woo is in one of the top like dozen pitchers or so that he's gotten exposure to, just running lineups with the default settings here. So I'm hardly getting to anything of Bryan Woo. I'm okay with just picking some of these other pitchers in this price range that I don't have the same pitch count concerns with. And you just hope Bryan Woo isn't the highest scoring pitcher on the slate.
The thing is, if we're hypothesizing a little bit because we don't know, no one knows exactly how long he's going to pitch. If what we're saying is even close to true, I think there's really only downside with Woo here, because ultimately, if he's that capped, like, I just don't think he can put up a score that is like absolutely needed on this slate with so many other good pitchers. So I'm with you. I'm not interested here. And if you were, 5% owned, I'd be very interested.
So let's move on to some of the other pitchers on the slate. And we'll look at the 7K range now, because there's also a couple of popular options in the 7K range. The pitchers that we're covering in this range, Charlie Morton is 7,900 on the road against the Mets. He's projected for 17% ownership. John Gray, $7,200 on the road against the Rockies, 20% owned John Gray. So John Gray is our second most popular pitcher on the slate. He's going back to his old stomping grounds in Coors Field, which he spent, the first 7 years of his career, something like that, in Colorado. Every single slate now, is this just the new deal? Every single time that the Rockies are at home, there's going to be a chalk pitcher again. It's gone poorly very frequently recently, and people keep going to the same well. John Gray, once again, 20% owned. And we saw this with, Keaton Winn yesterday, and he ended up getting hit around by the Rockies. The day before, we also saw it with Jordan Hicks. He got hit around by the Rockies. So I'm looking at John Gray at $7,200. Is there an upside against the Rockies? Sure, the Rockies offense isn't great, but This is once again going to be another one of these spots, Matt, where I feel like I'm going to be obligated to play Rockies stacks for leverage. If John Gray is going to continue to be this popular heading into lock, it's a Coors Field game. Nobody ever wants to play the Rockies. Everybody wants to play the pitchers against them. And the Rockies, as of late, have been hitting well at home, which is going to happen at Coors Field. I don't like John Gray at this projected ownership. Do you?
No, but I don't feel as strongly as you do on the other side. Like, yeah, they got to win yesterday, who has his own struggles. They were okay against Hicks, but it's not like they broke any slates. And then the day before, Kyle Harrison carved against them. So I see both sides of this. I'm not playing a chalky John Gray in this spot. His underlying numbers are significantly worse than his actual numbers. I don't think I'm too excited about stacking the Rockies either, though, just because I know they have home run upside because of the park, but this lineup just ultimately isn't good. And there's so many teams on this slate with good lineups and arguably better hitting spots because of the weather and Coors. So I'm more on your side. Like, I'd much rather stack the Rockies than use a chalky John Gray. I just think that there's a ton of opportunity cost in stacking Colorado here. But to that notion, there's a ton of opportunity cost in stacking any team. So I'm more with you than against you.
Yeah, and let me see. So my current exposures, I don't have like a ton of Colorado or anything like that. We'll talk more about stacks in a little bit, but I mean, once again, the Rockies are 2% owned and they're going up against the second most popular pitcher on the slate. So my preferred way to approach this game, it's going to be stacking the Rockies as opposed to playing John Gray. Are any of these other pitchers in the 7K range of interest to you? I mentioned that Charlie Morton is picking up some ownership. He's 17% owned. Every other pitcher in this price range, though, is sub 10% owned. Brandon Pfaadt, he's 4% owned. Quintana, 0.5% owned. Paul Blackburn, 7.5% owned. Cole Irvin is 1% owned. Michael King is 5% owned. Then we got Alec Marsh, 0.5% owned. Of these pitchers, anything standing out to you?
Not really. The guy I like the most is a little bit cheaper, and Andrew Abbott, who we'll talk about in a minute. So nothing for me in this range.
Yeah, let me see. Pitchers in the 7K range. I have some interest in Michael King, mostly because of the strikeout upside. The matchup is terrible against the Dodgers, so not like he's a priority for me or anything like that, but he's going to make his way into some of my lineups just due to that. And then also Charlie Morton, another pitcher who has upside. He's only $7,900 against the Mets. The Mets have a couple of bats you have to be worried about in the middle of the order, but beyond that, there are a lot of easier outs in the Mets lineup. And then also you look at a pitcher in Charlie Morton who should have strikeout upside. The concern that you would have about Charlie Morton is that he's 40 years old and at some point there's going to be a fall off. So far this year, he hasn't generated strikeouts at quite the same rate as in the past, but still he's a 3.5 ERA, 3.7 expected ERA. So if I'm rostering one pitcher in this price range, I do prefer Charlie Morton to John Gray. You're getting him in first, not Coors Field. That's always nice. But then also a matchup against the Mets that I'm not all that afraid of. And also Charlie Morton has a better track record of being a good starting pitcher in recent years than John Gray does. So give me Charlie Morton at sub 8K. I think he's a little bit underpriced. He's somebody that I have interest in. Cheap pitchers.
I get that.
We've got a whole bunch of punts here, Matt. And I know you had mentioned Andrew Abbott being somebody that you have some interest in, as does the field. He's 13% owned. Nothing crazy. But we've got Trevor Rogers, Andrew Abbott, Carlos Carrasco, Patrick Corbin, Griffin Canning, Austin Gomber, and Robert Gasser. By the way, what a name for a pitcher, Robert Gasser. That should really be a relief pitcher name, not a starting pitching name. Or even better, if he was a UFC fighter, only had like one round of cardio, Robert Gasser, that would be a strong name. So of these punt guys, you said you like Andrew Abbott. Lay out a case. What do you like about Andrew Abbott against the Giants?
Man, I just think he's a really good pitcher. We've seen strikeout upside from him last year, but putting that aside, he's 6,700. He gets one of the biggest ballpark upgrades you can get going from Cincinnati to San Francisco. He's been good. His actual numbers are good this year. The underlines are even better. I just think he's a really good pitcher. He's too cheap. He's in a very good spot. Like, not the best spot because I don't think Sam Fran has the worst lineup out there. Certainly not the best either. And everything else lines up for Abbott here. So yeah, I think he's like at least 1,000 too cheap. I'm on him pretty heavy tonight.
Abbott is the only pitcher in this price range getting any ownership, 13%. I think he's very clearly the top overall punt option on the slate. We haven't seen him pitch a ton so far in the big leagues just because he's a younger pitcher, only has 28 career starts. For what we've seen out of Abbott, though, solid stuff, 3.73 ERA, 4.32 FIP. This year, he's a 3.32 ERA, a 3.04 expected ERA, and solid strikeout stuff. 22.4% K rate so far this year, but it is 25.2% for his career. So I'm going to expect more swing and misses going forward. He's also going to be in a very pitcher-friendly park today, getting a big park upgrade for Andrew Abbott going from Cincinnati to San Francisco. I'm surprised he's not more popular. Considering the ownership going to somebody like John Gray, I would way rather play Andrew Abbott at $6,700, $500 less expensive than John Gray. And he's in San Francisco as opposed to Coors Field. I don't really understand that John Gray is nearly twice the ownership of Abbott.
I'm totally with you. Like, I'd take Abbott all day over Gray. Must be just a matchup thing, but yeah, Gray's underlyings are not great. That said, I get it. I mean, he's facing the Rockies. You could face the Rockies anywhere, and the opposing pitcher would get ownership right now. But I'm with you. I don't think that's the smartest move, even on this slate.
Any other pitchers at all that you have some interest in that we haven't mentioned yet?
I don't think so. How about you?
No, I've kind of hit on all of the guys that I like. My most rostered pitching combination actually is Tyler Glasnow and Andrew Abbott. If we go through all of the price ranges, just to kind of summarize it for people, let's pick off like one pitcher we like the most in each price range, Matt, and then we'll give out our favorite cash game combination. Then we'll look at FanDuel pitching really quick, and they'll build some lineups in the lineup generator and let people know also about the sale that we have going on at the moment. But on the high end, Tyler Glasnow for me. If you had to pick one of these expensive pitchers, Glasnow for yourself?
Yeah, same.
All right. Mid-range, talking about these guys in like the 8K range through $9,600. Logan Webb, I believe that was your guy.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Same for me, Logan Webb as well. And then if we're talking about pitchers who are in the 7K range, that is going to be Charlie Morton for me.
So this does not include Abbott, correct?
Yeah, just the Charlie Morton through Alec Marsh.
I'll ride with you on Morton. I don't particularly love him here, but I do think he's the best in that range, considering the ownership discount you get from Woo to him.
And then finally, punt options. It's going to be Andrew Abbott for both you and I believe.
Yeah, I will just call out also as even a deeper punt, Griffin Canning. He's not great. He has his struggle. He's struggled this year, but he's really cheap. Coming off his best start of the season. I mean, again, I'm not playing him because of this. I'm not really advocating for him, but he's got double-digit fantasy points, including 16 in his last start and 3 out of his past 4. And he's 5,600 against a lineup that, yeah, has upside, but Kansas City will also be owned. And Griffin and Canning can certainly go deep in this game if he's pitching well. So I don't hate that play at all.
And now we've got Hey, I'm Drew in chat is asking us. We're about to touch on anyway, but shout out to Hey, I'm Drew 95. And you guys do have a Stochastic subscription, or if you sign up for a Stochastic subscription, all those packages do include access to our Discord channel. You can ask us questions wherever you want. And Hey, I'm Drew is asking us, who are the cash plays for tonight? Pitchers and then stacks as well. Thanks a ton, guys. Yeah, so for cash games, it's a little hard because we don't have ownership to guide us. And I don't really love the cash op. Like, I don't want to play John Gray at Coors Field in cash games. I don't want to play Bryan Woo, who might only be pitching 4 innings in cash games. So I'm going to say Tyler Glasnow and Andrew Abbott is my preferred cash game combination.
I am right there with you. Like, I think there's a big leg up not playing Woo. I don't want to play Gray in Colorado. Ownership is not too far apart on anyone. Glasnow and Abbott. I'm with you.
Yeah, a lot of times when I'm kind of uncertain with the pitching combinations, I'll just kind of lean back on saying like, hey, there's this one pitcher is 40% owned. He's going to be super chalky in cash games. I'll just align myself with the field in cash. We don't have that today. So I'm just going to have to go with the guys that I feel the most comfortable with and that I think present the highest floors. And that's going to be Tyler Glasnow combined with Andrew Abbott, which also is going to allow us, because Abbott is so cheap, that we could pay up for some of these Texas Rangers bats in cash games today. Because hey, I'm Drew, per your question, you want to jam as many of these Rangers bats into cash games as possible.
I'm with you. Like, I don't even think it's crazy to go like Houck instead of Glasnow, just because I do think the bats are more important tonight, especially the expensive Texas bats who are going to be popular.
Yeah, and then let me look at the hitters. Yeah, so now if we're talking about hitters that I would then prioritize in cash games from the Rangers, I would say Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Jonah Heim as your catcher. That's another one. Ezekiel Duran, just because he's a little bit more on the cheaper end there. So those are the hitters that I think you should be playing in a cash game today. Coors Field, Rangers going up against Austin Gomber. If you are playing cash games, those are the hitters that you're going to want to be building around. Let's look at the FanDuel pitchers now and see what's standing out on the FanDuel side of things. Always a little bit different when we're only talking about a one pitcher site as opposed to a two pitcher site. So if we're looking at the FanDuel side of things, Matt, the most popular pitcher on FanDuel is once again John Gray at $7,400. Pretty crazy. He is 18% owned on a single pitcher site on a massive, massive slate at Coors Field. I don't really have all that much interest in that. Tyler Glasnow on the high end is 11,300. He's projected for 15% ownership. If you were rostering one pitcher on FanDuel who was 9K or higher, which that encompasses Logan Webb, Charlie Morton, Joe Ryan, Kikuchi, Houck, Ranger Suarez, Tyler Glasnow. By the way, Ranger Suarez also 11,100 on FanDuel. Who would be your pay-up option to go to in a FanDuel tournament?
It's still Glasnow. Like, he's expensive, but it seems like every pitcher is expensive on FanDuel. So, yeah, it's Glasnow. You got to concede elsewhere to make him work, but if forced to choose an expensive guy, it's going to be him. How about you?
Yeah, same for me. We've got Glasnow. I know he's 11,300, but it's like, what are the alternatives, right? I mean, Ranger Suarez, like just mentioned, he's 11,100. Tanner Houck is 10,800. These are very steep price tags. I do think Tyler Glasnow is the best pitcher of the bunch. So if I'm paying up for a pitcher on FanDuel, Glasnow is going to be my guy. If you're looking to pay down here on FanDuel, Matt, we've once again got Bryan Woo at 8K. He's picking up some ownership on FanDuel at 7%. It is so hard for me to envision Bryan Woo getting the quality start bonus. And even the win might be somewhat unlikely if he's not able to make it through 5 innings with a pitch count. So Bryan Woo, I think, looks weaker on FanDuel, even weaker on FanDuel than what we thought of him on DraftKings at his ownership. If you're going with a cheaper pitcher on FanDuel, which direction would you go?
Man, it's hard not to say Gray because of how cheap he is. I really don't like that, though. I'll go Abbott. He doesn't seem crazy cheap, but as I mentioned, they priced up pitching all over. So if you want to go really cheap, I think it's Canning at 6,400, but realistically, I'll go Abbott. How about yourself?
Yeah, Abbott for me as well. Because, I mean, if you look at the other pitchers in this range, actually, you know what, I'll pivot a little bit here. I think Abbott's a really strong consideration, but Garrett Crochet is 3% owned on FanDuel at $8,900. So it would be him or Abbott if we're looking at young left-handed starting pitchers. Both of them have a good amount of strikeout upside. And Crochet, you know, he's getting overlooked on FanDuel as people are going in other directions. So whereas on DraftKings, we think the ownership has gotten to be more appropriate on Crochet than it's been in previous slates. I do like the idea that we could get him at 3% ownership, knowing all that strikeout upside he has. It could be tough for Crochet to get through 6 innings because he's not the most efficient with his pitch count. But still, I like the upside that we have of Garrett Crochet. Crochet and Abbott, those are my two favorite cheaper pitchers on FanDuel. Anything else that stands out to you about the pricing or any of the pitcher ownership on the FanDuel side? All right. So with that being the case, let me double check to make sure there weren't any questions in Discord. And we're all caught up on those. So Jordan, pull up the lineup generator. We'll build some lineups in there. If you guys want to sign up for the lineup generator, sign up using the link that we have below. Less than $15 to get access to the MLB lineup generator. You could build lineups for both FanDuel and DraftKings, the lineups that are going to be built for you based on our simulations, lineups that we're expecting to be plus EV. And then in addition, get access to our Discord channel, our player projections, our ownership projections. Those could also all be found within the lineup generator. So if you want to change out any individual player in a lineup that maybe you don't like, you could swap one of those players and use information like our player projections and our ownership projections to figure out what it is that you want to swap to. So let's start with DraftKings here, Jordan. And we'll go all stack types. And since this is such a big slate, build chalky lineups. It's going to give us, I think, a lot of the Texas Rangers, but I do not hate that at all in large field tournaments. So let's see what it is we get to. Yeah, Rangers right away. Rangers. It's going to be almost all Rangers, but I'm cool with that on a slate of this size. And we'll talk about how we want to approach single entry in here as well, Matt. But for large field tournaments, the Texas Rangers have a 15% chance to be the highest scoring stack on the slate. The second closest team is the Kansas City Royals against Griffin Canning at 7%. So the Rangers are more than double the top stack odds of any other team on the slate. The prices are expensive, but not unplayably expensive. And then also they're 12% owned, so fairly modestly owned. In large field tournaments, I'm going to have to jam the Rangers.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's what we talk about a lot. Like in large field, this is what the ownership calls for. So they're under-owned. They're the best stack on the board. You don't have ownership concerns like you will in the higher dollar stuff. So I'm right there with you, man.
And we'll talk more about what we're going to do in single entry in a second after we make our way through some of these other lineups. But Rangers in 90% of our stacks, Red Sox in 62%. Those are the two most popular teams on the slate. What do you make of the Red Sox as another chalk team? They're projected for 12% ownership.
Yeah, that's one I'm definitely not going to be on like at all. Boston's been not good against left-handed pitching. Lofty and I have talked about this. Matter of fact, Texas and Boston have two of the biggest splits in the league. Both of them are really, really good against right-handed pitching, awful against left-handed pitching. Arizona, on the other hand, is really, really struggling against righties, but mashing lefties. So that's a hint into one of my favorite stacks on the board. But as far as Boston goes, like I get it with Texas. I don't get it with Boston. So I'm off them here.
Yeah, we've got Boston, the second most popular offense on the slate behind the Texas Rangers, but the Rangers have nearly like 3x the top stack odds that the Red Sox do. We've got the Red Sox with a 6.4% chance to be the highest scoring team on the slate. The Red Sox make their way into some of my lineups. They're going up against Patrick Corbin. He's terrible, the second highest team total on the slate, but I'm underweight to the field on the Red Sox. I currently have about half of the exposure the field has. They're landing in 6% of my lineups right now as a 5-man stack. So if I'm going to be chalky, I certainly prefer the Texas Rangers to the Boston Red Sox. I understand why people are playing the Red Sox against Patrick Corbin. Just a little bit too much ownership for me going to Boston. Let's look at the player exposures here, Jordan. We'll look at the pitchers and then as well as the hitters we're getting to from the Rangers and the Red Sox. And right away here, we'll see Rob Refsnyder showing up in a ton of lineups. He is only $3,500. Then we're seeing a bunch of those Texas bats. Marcus Semien, Adolis Garcia, Nate Lau. I see Ezekiel Duran, Robbie Grossman, Leody Tavares, and then a bunch of Red Sox bats in here as well. So towards the top, I saw, who was it? Refsnyder and then Connor Wong. Yeah, I mean, you got a catcher, $3,600 with a capable bat going up against Patrick Corbin. I'm good with Connor Wong being a one-off that I get to at the catcher spot. As far as pitchers are concerned, even using the chalky setting here, Matt, there's not one pitcher that stood out above all the rest. This is how thin the margins are at pitcher. We got to Tanner Houck in 31% of lineups. Scroll down a little bit, Jordan. So Houck in 31%, Logan Webb in 31%, John Gray in 26%, Crochet in 23%, Glasnow in 20%, Morton 15%. We're seeing something pretty clear. This shows up in both the Sims as well as the lineup generator. Matt, if you were playing a bunch of lineups today, would you be married to any one individual pitcher? Or would you be a little bit more spread out with your ownership? Because it seems like spread out is kind of a strong way to go.
Yeah, definitely spread out. The only guy I could see myself getting, like, I wouldn't say lock button, but like high ownership is Abbott. Like, I just think he's severely mispriced and in a great spot. So I'm struggling to want to make lineups without him, but I certainly wouldn't have like 150 of him if I played 150. So I'm right there with you.
And now let's talk about single entry. Before we build lineups out for FanDuel, let's talk about what we're liking for a single entry stack, because here's where I think teams like the Texas Rangers look a lot different. The Boston Red Sox, we've already talked about like being underweight to the field to them in large field tournaments. For the Texas Rangers, a team I'm going to be overweight to the field to in large field tournaments. But is Texas a team you're going to be looking to play in single entry contests, Matt?
No, pieces for sure. They look really good, especially the two guys you mentioned in cash games, Semien and Adolis Garcia. Love those two guys as one-offs, but I'm not going to be stacking Texas in like the 250 and stuff like that because I think they get way too much love, and that's where ownership is a concern. So after Texas and Boston, anything else is up for grabs, I think, in those type of tournaments, but I'm not personally going to play Texas or Boston. How about you?
It's going to be a no for me. It's going to be too popular. So large field tournaments, Texas is going to be my most roster team. I currently have 28% 5-man stacks of the Texas Rangers, playing them a whole bunch in large field tournaments. For single entry, though, I have to go somewhere else because I do expect we're going to see the Red Sox and the Rangers bats all around 20-ish% owned in single entry, which on a slate of this size is going to be too high for me. But now the question becomes, where do we want to go instead? We're both on the same page. We're not looking to stack the chalk teams in single entry. So Matt, what is the single entry stack for smaller field type stuff that stands out the most to you?
For me, it's Arizona. But as I said, like, I think you can go to basically any team that's not the Red Sox or Rangers and make an ownership case for them. No other team projected to be close to double digit owned. So if you want to say the Rockies against the chalky John Gray, I have no arguments with that. If you wanted to say Cleveland against a kind of chalky Garrett Crochet, no problems with that. For me, I'm going to roll with Arizona. I don't care too much about the lack of pitcher ownership that Cole Irvin's getting because ownership is so spread around. You're not getting that much direct leverage anyways, unless you're using like a San Diego. As I mentioned, Arizona has been lethal against left-handed pitching this year, has struggled a bit against righties, but it makes sense. This lineup has a ton of quote-unquote lefty mashers. Lourdes Gurriel, Christian Walker, Ketel Marte, Eugenio Suarez, Randall Grichuk in there today. I like Arizona quite a bit. Doesn't hurt that this lineup is actually good. They're not getting any ownership. That's where I'm at. How about you?
So I'm happy we got this question because Einsteinium in chat asked, are the Cardinals a team that I'm overweight to? The answer is yes. I have the set of all the offenses on the slate. I have the second most exposure to the St. Louis Cardinals. The only team I have more exposure to is the Texas Rangers. That's also my preferred stack for single entry right now, the St. Louis Cardinals. It's largely due to the price point where this team is so cheap. A lot of it's because, have you seen the production they've gotten out of the middle of the order lately?
Yeah, 0 for Gorman, Carlson, and Goldschmidt. 0 for 48 in May.
Yeah, 0 hits out of what's, Nolan Arenado would be in the mix as well. So we'll call it fair to say that those are like 3 out of the 4 of the Cardinals' best hitters, or at least who we expected to be the best hitters coming into the year. 0 for the entire month of May for those guys so far. As a result, they've gotten to be extremely cheap, and the field isn't playing them in what I think should be a pretty decent matchup. So if we look past just the recent results, if we consider things beyond just that they've been shitty for the last week and a half, and I know they aren't having, the overall greatest season either, but this was a team that was a competent offense last year. There are still good hitters in the lineup, even if they aren't performing all that well right now. Here's what's most important, though. I don't think Robert Gasser's any good. In fact, I think he's pretty terrible. Robert Gasser has made 3 starts in the minor leagues this year. He's an unranked prospect as well. So this isn't somebody who's considered to be a top-end pitcher or anything along those lines, nor is he expected to be one in the future. 5.25 ERA, 6.86 ERA in AAA this year. Last year in AAA, slightly better numbers, 3.79 ERA, 3.71 FIP. But then also you look back in 2022 where he had a 4.44 ERA in AAA. I'm not exactly sure why he's starting today because he's not a prospect. He hasn't had good results in the minor leagues. For whatever reason, though, the Brewers are like, oh, fuck yeah, 5.25 ERA, 6.86 FIP. Let's call this guy up to see if maybe the Cardinals offense is even worse than a AAA offense. I know that they've been that way lately. I don't think that's the case continually going forward. So I think Gasser is just terrible. And I think the Cardinals should have their way with them. In Milwaukee, it's a park upgrade. It's a hitter-friendly park. The Cardinals are my single entry stack, Matt.
I'm not on there with you. Like, I get it. Our tools say they're under-owned, but I'm not like Gasser is kind of a prospect. He's the 5th highest ranked prospect in the Brewer system. And he was a key part of the Josh Hader deal a couple years ago. So he hasn't been great, but I do think there's some pedigree here. Maybe we just differ in our stances on that, which is totally cool. I'm not excited about playing St. Louis ever. I get it. They're way too cheap now because they've been bad. They've got a 2K for mean leading off. He's probably my favorite play for them. He's been really, really good against left-handed pitching and was really good in the minors. So I like St. Louis here. I just don't think as low on Gasser as I think you do.
Yeah, it's hard for me to look at Gasser and think he's going to be serviceable at the big leagues. It's his first start. The Cardinals have been pretty miserable this year, so maybe he's able to put together a good outing. But more often than not, I think Gasser gets hit in this spot, and the Cardinals are so cheap as well. If you're making a 5-man Cardinal stack, you could mix them in with Rangers players. You can go up to Glass now. You go whatever you want with the rest of the lineup. So I'm liking the St. Louis Cardinals for today, Einsteinium. I'm overweight to them. It's my favorite offense outside of Coors Field. That's the way that I'm going to be going. You know, Josh Gillum in chat says he got called up because of the Peralta suspension. This is the best they have, though. A guy with a 5.25 ERA and a 6.86 FIP in the minor leagues. I'm not going to tell you I know all of the guys that are pitching in AAA for the Brewers. I just can't imagine this is their best guy though.
I don't know. I think we just differ on that. I mean, you have to take sometimes these minor league numbers with a grain of salt. Like, I don't know. I'm seeing that he had a 4 some ERA and then he went 1-1 with a 2.2. I don't know. I just think you think way lower of Gasser than I do. I mean, he was the Brewers minor league pitcher of the year last year. So
I think it says more about their minor league system than him. He had a 4.52 xFIP.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, yeah, I just don't think as low on him as you do, but I could be completely off here.
Yeah, so we'll see what ends up happening. They're very cheap. I'm going to be playing some of the Cardinals today, and not all that popular either. Usually the way that I like to play single entry or looking for leverage, it's hard to find those spots. I guess the team that would be the most highly leveraged spot, Matt, would probably be the Colorado Rockies, but there isn't enough ownership going to John Gray where I think it's going to matter all that much in single entry. Do you see any particular leverage spots you'd consider for single entry or kind of seeing it the same as me?
I see it the same as you. I do think it's Colorado. I don't think Gray's ownership is going to get out of hand where you feel compelled to stack Colorado, but Colorado looks decent even without that Gray ownership, and Gray's going to get love. So yeah, it would be Colorado, but I'm with you.
And also Sean V said that Gasser had a 3.7 ERA before these 3 starts. He's only made 3 starts this year. Those are all 3 of them. His ERA was 0 before that. He had made 0 starts before these 3. It's small sample size as well, but he's gotten hit around. He's gotten hit around there in the minor leagues. Let's look at some of the FanDuel lineups in the lineup generator, Jordan. We'll see what's showing up on FanDuel. In the interim, Hey, I'm Drew said thoughts on Ranger Suarez. Surprised he's so low owned, but maybe you can explain it. He's not that low owned today. He is 12% owned. Or no, so he was 12% on 12% on both FanDuel and DraftKings. Relative to the slate, he's not that low owned. The problem I have with Ranger Suarez is just the price point. At 10,300, I don't realistically think he is a massively high ceiling. He's pitched very well so far this year, but I don't know. I think we have enough data on Ranger Suarez to say he shouldn't typically be a guy who's priced north of 10K.
Yeah, I agree. You're paying full price for him. He's been that good this year, but I'm not completely buying it either. And he's too close to glass now for me. We see the side eye.
And let's see what we're getting to in our FanDuel lineups. And right off the bat here, seeing a lot of Tyler O'Neill. So I'm going to assume that means that there is a lot of Red Sox exposure that we're getting to in the contest in the lineup generator. And yeah, 90% Red Sox stacks, 59% Rangers. The one issue you're going to find on the Rangers on FanDuel relative to DraftKings, just the price points. They're a little bit more expensive there. So as a result, we do only have the Rangers with a 4.9% chance to be the top value stack on FanDuel, quite a bit higher over on DraftKings. These are once again the 2 most popular offenses on the slate. Boston, 15% owned, Texas, 12% owned over on FanDuel. Same deal over on FanDuel. I think Boston's a little bit over-owned. I really do like getting to Texas at 12% owned. That's my favorite stack for large field tournaments. Not all that much ownership going there. As far as what we're seeing here in the contest generator, lots of Red Sox, lots of Rangers, Tyler O'Neill, Rob Refschneider, Marcus Semien, Rafael Devers, Adolis Garcia, Vaughn Grisham, Connor Wong. You have to go very far down before we get to a non-Rangers or Red Sox player, because even our most rostered pitcher here is John Gray, then Corey Seager, Jonah Heim, Jaron Duran, Ezekiel Duran. Finally get to Bobby Witt, who's like our, 12th, 13th most popular rostered player in the lineup generator here, to finally find somebody who isn't on the Red Sox or the Rangers. So that's where the chalk is today over on FanDuel. But keep scrolling down, Jordan. I want to see who the other pitching options are. So we got to John Gray the most, followed by Bryan Woo. I don't really love either of those. Then Glasnow, Logan Webb, Brandon Pfaadt. Yeah, once again, pretty spread out at pitcher over on FanDuel. Anything else you want to add about these lineups, Matt?
No, it looks pretty good to me.
All right. So, guys, that is going to do it for us talking about the lineup generator. If you want to sign up for it, use the link that we have below in the description box. Less than $15 for that gets you access to our Discord channel, as well as the ability to build lineups and check out our ownership, as well as player projections within this. One other deal I want to bring up as well. Jordan, play the animation / clip for the Anthony Edwards sale. So we have a sale going on right now for the NBA Sims. This is our final NBA sale of the season. We want to give people one final chance to get into our NBA Sims Max package for a cheaper price point. So less than $20. You build lineups using our NBA Sims Max. So you could build up to 5,000 lineups. You could simulate all of those lineups. And then also, when you sign up with that promo code Edwards for Anthony Edwards, who's been excellent in the postseason, you get access for just $20. It's going to be access for 1 week. So you could see, is it something that you like, that you want to play with for the rest of the season? Because since we do have Sims for showdown slates as well, this will carry you through the NBA Finals if you want to use our Sims package through the NBA Finals. So good for 2-game slates, good for single game slates. We've got all of it covered. So if you guys do want to sign up, use that link below, promo code Edwards. It's already loaded into the link. If you did want to go over to the site, just plug in that promo code Edwards. But this is also exclusive to people who are watching our shows. We're not promoting this on social media. We're not promoting it on the website. We want to make something exclusive for the people who watch our content. And this is how you could get access to the NBA Sims Max package here for a cheaper price point. So go check that out. Promo code Edwards. Let's talk about all the other stacks on the slate, Matt, before we wrap up here. Are there any other teams that are really standing out to you that we've not talked about yet from a ownership or just high top stack odds perspective?
Maybe Atlanta, like they're coming in under owned. It's just so hard to get there. I honestly think though, like outside of Texas, Boston, and like a couple random bats like Otani and Bobby Witt, like everything else is just not owned really. There's so many in baseball. You've got so many plays that look similar that I just don't think ownership is as big of an issue tonight as it is, on most slates. I just think there's so many spots that look about the same. How about you?
I'm going to have to make a case for the Colorado Rockies for the third consecutive slate. Jon Gray is the second most popular pitcher on the slate. There aren't that many spots to find leverage on. Jon Gray this year, you'd pointed out before, Matt, his underlying numbers aren't great. They're not terrible either. He's got a 3.86 expected ERA, so it's quite a bit worse than the 2.5 ERA. Have you noticed this, or is it just me? Is ERA just playing a bigger role in terms of ownership this year? Like people are only looking at ERA and no other pitcher metrics. Because Jon Gray, 2.5 ERA. So people are just like, oh, cool, we're playing Jon Gray against the Rockies. This is another spot, though, where I think the Rockies present pretty good leverage. And there's been 3 slates in a row where you could say that the Rockies made sense as a leverage option. One of them went very poorly. Kyle Harrison absolutely destroyed them. But then we did see them come through against Hicks as well as last night. So it's been 2 out of 3 slates. The Rockies have had pretty big or reasonably decent nights. And I think they could get to Jon Gray here. 2.5 ERA, 3.86 expected ERA. Jon Gray also has seen a pretty big decrease in his fastball velocity, 94.6 miles per hour. He was at 95.7 last year. He was at 96 the year before. So that's a little bit of a concern, this big velocity drop for Jon Gray. But I mean, we've only got 2 pitchers that are projected for 20+% ownership on the slate. One of them is Jon Gray. I'm willing to stack against him. The other one is Bryan Woo. I'm not really looking to stack against Woo because he is actually good. We're just not really liking him because we think he's going to throw limited pitches and limited innings. But I like the Rockies a little bit, and it's mostly just because I think Jon Gray is overowned.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. Again, with ownership, or not with ownership, with so many stacks looking similar, might as well go to the one that looks just like all the others, but is facing a chalky pitcher. I'm with you.
And all right, no other questions that have come across in chat yet. But one other offense I want to bring up is the Kansas City Royals against Griffin Canning. That's the other team I have double-digit exposure to. Canning hasn't had the best start to the season. And like I've mentioned a few times about this Royals offense, well, it's not the best in the league. We've seen time and time again with the Royals when they do score runs. It comes from home runs. It comes from extra base hits. It comes from stolen bases. And then Griffin Canning has been terrible this season. 6.69 ERA, 5.06 expected ERA. Another pitcher with a pretty significant dip in his fastball velocity. It was 94.6 miles per hour on average last year. This year it's 93.6. And as a result, the strikeouts are so far down. He has a 16.8% K rate, by far the lowest of his career. When you're combining that with a dip in velocity, that's a cause for concern with Griffin Canning. This is a pitcher who's had elbow issues in the past as well. I think the Kansas City Royals, who have our second highest top stack odds, are another stack to be getting to. I have double-digit exposure to them, Matt. Are the Royals a team that interests you at all?
Yeah, they do. Their ownership is there. So I don't think you're like sneaking by anyone with the Royals, but I also think if you're not playing Boston or Texas, you don't have to worry about that ownership. I probably like Canning a little bit more than you, just a price thing. And yeah, he's not very good, but he's been good in the past. And I'm not afraid of this Kansas City lineup. Like it's good and they have upside, but they're also like not proven at all. And we've seen them have bad games plenty of times as well. So again, it would just be a price thing for me. I'm not going out of my way to play Canning. I don't think you need it. I don't think he's crazy. Certainly would lean on the Royal stacks if forced to choose.
Can I give you one other piece of information to maybe make you like the Royals more?
Surely.
Sean V is saying it is Salvador Perez's birthday today.
Lock him in.
So what is he? What is he turning? 47? Something like that. Salvador Perez. How old is he?
He's been around a long time. I think he's old, but has been playing since he was like 21.
He is 30. No way he's only 34. He turned 34 today. He was 33 yesterday. I don't buy that for a second. Jordan, can you put a picture of Salvador Perez on screen? He's lying about his age. I have no doubt about it. He's 45 at a minimum. Yeah, I'm pulling him up right now. He's not our age, Matt. There's no chance.
Yeah, I mean, he's not my age. He's your age. I wish I were 34.
Yeah, I'm not buying this for a second. Salvador Perez, he's a liar about his age. Somebody cut him open and count the rings. Anything else you want to bring up at offense here, Matt?
I don't think so.
All right, guys. So any final, look, this is not a man in his mid-30s. What happened to him in that picture? Why does he look skinnier there? I guess he's just wearing wet clothes. I don't know. You guys be the judge. Is he really 34 or not? Steve saying I'm playing him. I like the Royals are my second most rostered offense or third. Let me see. Who am I? Yeah, the three teams I have double-digit exposure to are the Rangers, number 1, Cardinals 2, Royals 3. I'm playing him a lot. I'm just saying he looks old. Playing him in DFS though.
Yeah, makes sense.
Sports guy, wet clothes make you look skinny. Yeah, because you're not wearing like poofy clothes. There's no air. All right, let's do some home run picks. Then we'll turn it over to the NBA Live before lock, guys. If you guys have home run picks in chat, feel free to chime in and let us know who you think is going to hit a home run today. Matt, dong of the day, who's going yard?
I'm going to go completely off the board here. Fernando Tatis going yard off glass now.
Boy, I've got a couple of guys I'm stuck in between here. You know what's funny? Salvador Perez is one of my most rostered hitters. I think he's a pretty strong pick, but I'm going to go here with Paul Goldschmidt to get off the schneid. Paul Goldschmidt, the last time he had a hit, Salvador Perez was only 32 years old. That's how long it's been since we saw Paul Goldschmidt last get on base in a baseball game. But he's going up against a pitcher, Robert Gasser, who Matt and I have had a little bit of disagreement here about whether this guy's any good or not. Matt thinks he might be. I'm on the probably not as good side. I'm going to be playing the Cardinals for really cheap, and I'm going with Paul Goldschmidt as my home run pick.
Every time we do one of these, you're always right. I end up messaging you like, I can't believe I was such an idiot. And the same thing's going to happen tonight. I'm already preparing myself for it.
Yeah, it's always we're like 10 minutes into the slate, and you send me the Billy Madison gift.
Yes. Yep. Because it's so appropriate.
Every single time. Let's see what we have in chat for your guys' home run picks. No Coors Field. That's a little bit cheating if we go with those guys. And right away, I see Adolis Garcia in here. Steve Sand going Salvador Perez. I love it. Sotex got Yordan Alvarez. Then Malukar went with Semien. That's also Coors Field. Bryce Terang for Helms 22. Andre B going with Ozzy Albies. I like it. He's a guy who hits much better from the right side of the plate than he does from the left side of the plate. He's got a decent matchup against Jose Quintana. No ownership going to the Braves today either. Let's see what else. Slim Lancaster's got Vinny Pasquantino. We've got Junior Whoppers, got Nick Castellanos. Okay, Malukar switched. He's going with Bobby Witt Jr. now instead. No Cap Battle Rap. All right, there's a name. He's got Marcelo Ozuna. Helm's also going with Nick Castellanos. Jay Lovelady going with Blaze Alexander, the best name in the business. Aiden Queskin's got Matt Olson. CJ the Great has got Walker. I assume Christian Walker. How many Walkers are on the slate today?
I love Christian Walker tonight. He's like my favorite bat on the slate. I should have said him instead of Tatis.
Yep, Walker's the only hitting Walker on the slate. So yeah, that works there. Reg Kell 85 has got Colton Cowser. Sports Guys going with Carlos Correa. Massey for Aaron Hines. Michael Roundtree's going with Max Muncy. Freshka's going with Nolan Arenado. And that is going to do it for us today, guys. If you have not done yet, do us a big favor. Like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Shout out to DraftKings Pick 6 for sponsoring the show today. You guys should really be checking out the Pick 6 contest if you haven't already. I would love to play them. I can't from New Jersey. I'm very jealous of the people who can play it. I know it's going to be in every state in the near future, but at least as of now, only in a handful of states. If you guys have a state that has Pick 6 and you aren't playing it yet, get on it. Take advantage of it. We also got projections for it over an Odd Shopper. So guys, thank you very much for watching. If you stick around in playback an hour from now, I'll be watching the games, sweating out the basketball games over on playback. So check that out. Maybe Jordan will check it out with us, and maybe Ryan and Eric will all hang out together. And hopefully you guys come in too. So have a great night. Like and subscribe, and see you later. Peace out.